I've just realized more that so many of us understand what healthy eating looks like, but we really need help just being okay with food and being comfortable with it and just having a healthy relationship with it.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Rachael.
And we have an extra special guest on with us this week. Sammi Haber Brondo is a registered dietitian nutritionist with a private practice in New York City. She graduated with a degree in psychology from the University of Michigan and a master's of science in clinical nutrition from New York University. She's the author of Essential Vegetable Cookbook, a cookbook with 130 recipes, delicious vegetable-focused recipes, and Sammi practices an all foods fit approach to nutrition and believes that we should eat. We should be realistic with what we eat and enjoy it. Finally. Welcome, Sammi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're super excited.
I'm so excited because if you haven't checked out Sammy's Instagram, she makes amazing content at Veggies and Chocolate. And it is just so relatable and so refreshing to see a dietitian, using the kinds of methodologies you do to really make people realize that there is a way to have a healthy relationship with food and also be health conscious. And it's so refreshing and it's so amazing. And I just want to, spread this content everywhere because it's so necessary in the space. So, first of all, bravo to you for doing amazing work. And secondly, can you tell us a little bit about you and like what led you to wanting to become a nutritionist?
Yeah. So I probably decided to become a dietitian in college. I think I had an experience like in high school and college that was really similar to a lot of people that I work with and a lot of people that I know I talk to on social media, where in high school my friends and we just really didn't eat a lot of food. It was the early 2000s. It was when thin was in, and like that was just what you did. We didn't understand nutrition, we didn't understand food, we didn't understand our bodies, and we really just didn't eat a lot. And I went to college and I gained a lot of weight. And I tried all these crash diets that I was doing in high school, and all of a sudden they weren't working. And not only that, but I was hungry, I was moody. It just was a really bad experience. And I went to see a dietitian for myself finally, who kind of told me that we need to eat to be healthy. And it sounds so simple, but it was such an eye-opening experience for me, that it really made me interested in nutrition. It made me want to go into it. And since then, since I went to grad school and became a dietitian, and the more that I've worked in this field, I've just realized more that so many of us understand what healthy eating looks like, but we really need help just being okay with food and being comfortable with it and just having a healthy relationship with it. So that's what kind of took me on my whole journey to being a dietitian that works in the area that I do.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I had read that about you and thought this is the experience of so many women and so much of our youth growing up when it comes to what should we eat? How can I consume the least amount of calories in a day? And that is the goal. And when you have those experiences at like a young age where you're like in high school, like sometimes like middle school, I know that like the study is looking at when, girls start their first diet now is like age 13, which is just, that's wild. Like you're like still a child. So I think that this is such an important conversation to start with women who even now we're still going with like, what's the least amount that I can eat, and saying like, you need food to live a healthy lifestyle seems super simple, right? But even just that phrase in itself, like you need to eat, is like kind of scary for a lot of women. Do you find that with some of your clients?
Oh my gosh, yeah, all the time. I mean, we have Because it kind of seems like, if you want to weigh less, be healthy, you need to eat less. And it is so scary sounding to be like, no, you need to eat more food. I find that all the time. And I think so many of us and so many of the women that I work with, we've tried these diets that were so restrictive and such small amounts of food that the idea of like actually eating enough for your body, which probably isn't a crazy amount of food, is just enough. It seems so scary. I posted something on TikTok recently that went viral, which is always kind of like good and bad when that happens because
Oh God, it's
commenters on
getting bad.
TikTok are right. They're like ruthless on there. Like, oh my God, they say anything. And it was a video about how we need a minimum of 130 grams of carbohydrates a day. And people were shocked, like absolutely shocked. And that's a minimum. So yeah, I mean, I think it's sad that we have these beliefs that we need to eat so little when really we should be eating. Food is energy, and there's so many reasons we need to eat enough food.
Oh, I
Oh
saw that
God.
TikTok. I saw that one. And yeah, well, it was having to do with brain functioning, being,
Mhm.
your brain functioning at an optimal level when you're getting that minimum amount of carbs. And like, it was like, did she say carbs? Like, people don't
Yes.
realize sometimes, I think the things, the tactics that they're using to, they think, be healthier are really, really hurting basic functions of their body. Like brain fog, just being like, oh, well, that's just a side effect of me, getting skinny. Like that's not okay or normal in any way. And, I think that that video really brought that to light. Like, if you're experiencing brain fog from a lack of carbohydrates, here's why.
Yeah, for sure. And it's sad, I don't blame anyone who thinks that way because you have just so many diets that are being marketed and people are very believable when they market them, and you have people that try them and they say this diet quote unquote worked for me when they show worked as like their very thin body, which isn't. Does that mean it worked, or does that just mean you temporarily, got thin? I don't blame anyone. I think marketing is really good, and I think it's really easy to fall trapped to these diets because they come wrapped in this shiny package and they offer something appealing and they seem like they're going to work. And then you have someone saying, no, you need to eat more carbs. And they're like, hold on, that sounds weird. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I love that because it's so true. And no, we don't blame anyone who hears that and says like, oh, that marketing is really good. And like that worked Air Bunnies being for like a short period of time. And is that how we are deciding if something works? And did something work because you lost a significant amount of weight in a short period of time and you felt like absolute trash the entire time? Is that what we're saying works now? Like, have we completely negated the conversation surrounding like what is healthy? Like, did you feel healthy during that time? Like, how's your mental health? How's your physical health? How was your like daily functioning? Like, how's your brain functioning on on a daily basis? Did you feel clear? Did you feel like you were going through your day with a sense of energy and clarity? And how is your conversations going? And what gets me so much is that like the diet industry is very focused on women. Like, it is what it is. And it hurts my heart to know that so many women are going through their life in such a fog that like we're not even like getting the best out of you, right? Like, we're not even getting like the most energetic and like that your thoughts are being clear and concise that they could be because we're like going around in this fog.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also the fact too that like food just can be a source of joy. So many like social events and special occasions and even just meals with other people is such a way to get joy out of life. And it's so sad to think of how many people spend so much time on these diets and they don't get to experience that they might go to a party and be stressed about the food or go out to dinner with their partner and not be able to enjoy their dinner out. Like that's a big part of life too. It's funny actually, like right before I got on with you guys, my sister-in-law sent me something that there's a very well-known celebrity just said that she for the past like 20 years has only basically eaten steamed fish and veggies. And we both were like, that is so sad. Like, that's just really sad. There's so much enjoyment that you miss out on when you're not eating a variety and of foods and foods that you like.
So let's talk about that for a second, because your approach to nutrition is what you call an all foods fit kind of approach. So rather than the sad steamed veggies and salmon for the rest of your life and never enjoying anything outside of that realm, what is exactly the all foods fit approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's really just that I believe all foods can fit into your diet. Health and nutrition are very important to me. You know, it doesn't mean I want you to eat cookies all day, every day. That's all I want you to eat. I definitely want you to honor nutrition and health and eat things that feel good physically, which usually are more nutritious foods. But it means that I also really want you to include all foods in your diet, things that you love. If you love cookies, I don't want you to have to make some quote unquote healthier cookie and not eat cookies when you want them. I don't want you to feel like you can't eat pizza. I really feel like there's a place for all foods in the diet. And I feel that the way to make your diet the most realistic and enjoyable and sustainable is to include everything and to know that nothing is off limits.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a refreshing thing to hear, that if you want to live a healthier lifestyle, you don't have to give up all the joys in your life. If you find joy in, like, because that, right? Like, 'cause
Because
it's so weird.
who would want to live a healthy lifestyle under those conditions? Like, you can be healthy or you can have joy.
And we like, it's funny because like they have memes about it. Like we promote that like over and over. Like, well, I could have that, or I could enjoy tacos. And like for me, I always go back to that because like everyone knows I just like love tacos. In any form, like it's in a bowl, it's in a wrap, it's on pasta. That's not even taco anymore. Like whatever. But like that's part of me living a happy, healthy life, because like that's part of the things that I enjoy, that's included in my diet, and things that like make me feel good. So like that wouldn't be, if I was saying like I'm gonna live a healthy lifestyle, I wouldn't take out the things that I enjoy. And then like the next thing we wanted to ask you is, what's the biggest challenge you face when working with a new client?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there are a few. I think one of them is a lot of times I see with clients, there's just so much diet history. One to fill me in on, like you said, like diets unfortunately start so young these days that by the time I'm working with someone, there's so much to fill me in on in their history before we get to the present day, and also like so much unlearning to do. And I think that probably does kind of play into then the biggest, or the hardest thing when I first see clients is really like unlearning a lot of those rules and those false things that we've been told or that we see on social media about food, you know, explaining that, yeah, you can eat carbs and you actually should eat carbs. I want you to eat them. They make you full. They help keep you satisfied. Explaining that 1,200 calories is a ridiculous number that most people probably should not be aiming for and should be eating much more. It's really hard to unlearn those things. I think, especially when a lot of those rules kind of feel safe. Unlearning those and explaining that, you know, I do want you to give yourself permission to eat foods and enjoy foods, and there's room for all foods. It's definitely a big struggle.
And, I really, that's a lifelong, subset of knowledge that's been in there and been pushed. And you're right that it's really, really hard to unlearn. Think about how many times you've heard those things. And if you have to hear the opposite as many times, then we're going to have to be here for a while, because I mean, there's a whole entire culture that is surrounding that marketing. And, I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that maybe their relationship with food is a little bit broken when they hear things like, why do you have a rule that you can't eat after 7 o'clock? Like, who told you that? Like, why do you have a rule that carbs are bad? Like, where did you come up with? And they're recognizing some of the language, especially we see with moms, that like when they say it back in front of their children, they're like, oh my God, I don't want my daughter to hear that. But it's like, but you're saying that to yourself. And that's, I think, like the first step where people are starting to really realize, like, maybe I have a little bit of damage here with my relationship with food. So what do you think is the first step if someone kind of recognizes that they have, some issues in that area with creating a healthier relationship with food? What would you recommend somebody start with?
It's so funny that you even mentioned like the no food after 7, because that's kind of exactly what I was thinking. It's such a big one and it comes from nowhere. So we can use that as an example even too. But I think like one of the first places to start is really just recognizing and understanding that you have unconditional permission to eat any food. And that's a really hard concept to understand, that you are allowed to eat any food anytime you want. It sounds really scary. And I know a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, one, no, if I did that, I would gain a ton of weight. Or if I did that, I would only eat cookies all day. And or someone will be like, a like ruthless TikTok commenter will be like, so you're telling me I should just eat cookies all day? And like, again, no, that's not at all what we're saying. But I really want you to feel like you have permission, know that you can eat foods, because the thing is with these food rules that they feel safe, and a lot of times they help. Like, I can't eat after 7 makes me feel, it can help you feel safe, like I know I'm not going to overeat if I stop eating at 7. Or you tell yourself, I can't eat cookies. I know I keep going back to cookies. It makes you feel safe that you can't eat cookies. But having these rules actually makes you more inclined to overeat, because any food rule gives you a sense of deprivation and of restriction. And anytime you have that sense of deprivation, of restriction, it leads to uncontrollable cravings that eventually have to be given into in the form of overeating or binge eating. Where instead, if we take away those rules and we finally get all these foods on an even playing field, it definitely takes time. I mean, if you haven't been allowing cookies for a month and you finally are allowed, you might all of a sudden want a lot of cookies at first, but over time it really does even out, where you can look at a cookie in a neutral way and say, I know I can eat this food anytime I want. Do I actually want it right now at 11 a.m.? And the answer might be no. You might be like, that actually doesn't sound good, or actually this cookie isn't the cookie I want. I don't even like this cookie. Before, it was so exciting just because it was a cookie in general, but I don't like the taste of this one. I'd rather wait and get one I really like and will enjoy. And that's the first step, but it's obviously such a process. It's not an easy thing at all, but like being able to shift that mindset makes the biggest difference in just the way you eat and your relationship with food overall.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you brought that up. I think every nutritionist that we've brought on that's talked about like intuitive eating has said like, this is a process, number one, and that's something no one wants to hear, but it is a process. And addressing the fact that once you start this, if you open the door to saying like there are no rules here, there are no limits, you may overeat on a specific thing at the beginning because you've had such a long-standing history of deprivation with that specific food. So that is a relationship that you're working to heal, that doesn't just flip a switch where you say like, oh, I'm okay with cookies or nachos or whatever it is that you feel that you may overeat and you may overindulge in. And then you find like, well, I don't feel good. Like I don't feel good after that. I don't actually like that cookie. And something that had happened with me over the years that I learned, after, years of kind of like doing this as a lifestyle, like I was like, I don't like all cookies. And I didn't even know that before, like in my 20s, like, a grown adult, like I didn't even know, like I don't like sugar cookies. Like I only really like chocolate cookies. And I don't like frosting. Like it was things that kind of you start to learn where the permission no longer comes from outside of yourself. It starts to just come from you. And I thought that was interesting that you brought up with, some of the TikTok comments with when they say like, so you're telling me I can eat cookies all day. Why are you, when I present this idea that there is no restriction, are you still asking someone else for permission to eat those cookies? Because you haven't even asked yourself if you want to. Like, I just
That's
think
such a
that's
Yeah.
weird thing. I'm sorry, that's such a weird thing. And I completely agree. And I also think that the way that I think it makes such a big difference to a woman in her life when she starts being responsible for her own choices and says, like, nobody tells me what to eat. I tell me what to eat because I'm freaking in charge. And like that just like no, but I mean, it's a weird thing to think like we always are trying to give up power and trying to give up control to like somebody. I have a nutritionist to tell me what to eat, and they tell me how many cookies I can have, and if they tell me I can eat cookies all day, I do. It's like just completely giving away all of your power and all of your intuition and everything that makes you you. And that's a weird thing for me. Like, why would we ever want to do that?
I think it goes back to though, like being, scared to eat certain foods. And if you're eating what someone tells you is okay and someone else tells you you can do, that feels safe. It feels really scary at first to trust yourself and that you know what to eat. And there is, again, that fear that if you can eat whatever, then you're just gonna, eat the least healthy foods all day long, when the truth is, like you were saying before, Kelsey, it goes back to like how you feel too. You want to feel good, and at first you might eat more, but like our bodies, we want to feel good. We don't want to feel overfull. We don't want to feel weighed down and tired. We want to feel our best. And that's why once you do get to a place of this healthy relationship with food, you really do strive a lot of the time for like nutritious foods, veggies, fruit, protein, whole grains, but you also want these other foods too, because like we were saying before, you're human and you want to enjoy food and enjoy life, and food is a big source of joy, and that's okay. It's allowed to be.
yeah. Like if you eat all those cookies, like how do you feel? Like are you feel good? Do you feel good with that? Is that how you want to feel today? Because it's totally up to you. The
Mhm.
next thing I wanted to ask you about is what do you think the most damaging behavior or language we see exhibited when it comes to food?
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, there are so many. Like the first thing that comes to my mind would probably be just the idea of like guilt with food, or calling foods good or bad in general. You know,
Morality with food.
Yeah, yeah, it all kind of goes in line with like anytime you say or you hear someone say, and this is so common, something like, "Oh, I should order the salad," or "I was so bad today, I ate pizza." Um, those are really damaging things to say because, like you said, it assigns this morality to food. It tells us that one food is good and one food is bad, and any way you look at that, it's going to trigger something where you either, think you should be good and have the good food, or you think, I was already bad. I'm just going to keep being bad. I was so bad this week. Let me be good. It takes you so far away from your internal cues, and it makes you focus on everything you think you should do. When again, in reality, if you just kind of focus on internal cues, the chances are if you ate a big slice of pizza for lunch with no protein or veggies, you're probably going to want some protein or veggies by dinner time. So yeah, it's I would think actually probably good and bad would be like the most damaging, and then in line with that, calling food like guilt free. I don't like that at all, just because that kind of implies that like there are foods you should feel guilty for eating, and you shouldn't unless you stole the food. There's nothing to feel guilty about. um, I don't like the term clean eating. I think it's like super ambiguous, and again does kind of what good and bad does. It's saying some food is clean, some food isn't. Like, an apple is clean if you wash it, it's not clean if you don't. Bottom line, like I don't like those ambiguous terms like that. So I think anything that like really just kind of places judgment on what you eat can be really harmful.
Yeah,
Love
I
that.
yeah, I love that you said that too because I've struggled over the years. In the past I used to use the term clean eating, and it was definitely part of my process of like coming to where I am now with food. And it was hard to explain to other people when they would ask like, "What is your diet like? Like, what's your nutrition like?" And I was like, well, like they wanted to hear something specific. They wanted to hear macros or they wanted to hear keto or any like they wanted to hear something very specific. And when you kind of say like I eat food. It's kind of a broad term, right? But it takes some time to get there and kind of put some language around, like, it's not clean, it's not dirty, it's how it feels good for me, and actually just eating in a healthy lifestyle includes foods that maybe others would consider like bad or unhealthy. And it's kind of like it's hard to put language to that because you say like, well, there is no restriction here.
Yeah, it's like it's not as appealing, you know. I think we all like went through the clean eating phase and it's has a better sound. You're like, "Oh, I eat clean." It doesn't maybe sound as cool to be like, "No, I just eat food." But that's the nice thing about like creating a healthy relationship with food is it just makes food so neutral, which is what we want. We don't want food to be this like thing on a pedestal that you feel really superior if you're eating really quote unquote clean, or you're praised for choosing like the healthy option, or you feel bad about yourself for getting french fries. We just want food to be neutral, which is, even though it doesn't sound exciting, like the best way for you to enjoy food and the best way for you to get the most excitement out of it when you just really look at it all on this even playing field.
Yes, the even playing field for food. It's just food. We don't need to think about it all day. We don't need to think 40 hours in advance what our next like thing we're going to eat is. Like take it off the pedestal. It's just food. I love that. Um okay, this is a tough one but I think it's something that when you bring up intuitive eating or any of these like no restrictions kinds of ways of eating, people's first instinct is to say, well, I have aesthetic goals or I have fat loss goals. And in order for me to be a healthier person in my body, I need to lose some fat. And that's just like the end. Like that's a true statement. It's agreed on by my health professionals. And can you still have aesthetic goals or fat loss goals when you follow an all foods fit approach to nutrition? And what does that look like?
It's such a good question, and it's such a big and important topic. I actually just put out a blog post about that this week, and I was saying that if the blog post only like skims the surface because it's a huge topic, and I know a lot of people feel that way. They do want to lose weight and they want to feel better in their bodies, but they want food freedom and they want a healthy relationship with food. And there are a few big things to think about with that. One is that you can't have both. And the reason for that is because whenever you're focused on any kind of weight loss, you know, you're focused on the scale and how your clothes feel and what you look like. Those are these external factors that are really going to take you away from focusing on internal factors like how hungry you are, what you're craving, how full you are, how satisfied you are. And anytime you have those external factors in the way, they distract you from the internal factors. So instead of thinking, mac and cheese sounds really good right now, I'm going to go get mac and cheese, you also have mac and cheese sounds really good right now, but I want to lose weight when I get on the scale tomorrow. So what should I do about this? And it really gets in the way of your relationship with food. Whereas when you do let go of the, you know, weight loss goals and those external factors, and when you get to a place of like being comfortable in your relationship with food, a lot of times you're able to be like, mac and cheese sounds really good right now, but I know mac and cheese alone won't leave me, you know, feeling as full as I would like. Maybe will make me kind of tired because it's just carbs and nothing else. So let me add a little broccoli and a little chicken to it and make it a balanced meal. And the difference is, you know, when you're focused on the scale, you're maybe having like zucchini noodles with cheese instead of the mac and cheese, or you're cutting your portion and not enjoying it the way you want. Whereas when you get rid of that focus and you're just focused on your relationship with food, you're still enjoying the mac and cheese, but you're doing it in a way that feels good. So unfortunately, like, you know, you can't really work on both. I think another really important thing to remember is that you really, really can be healthy at any size. And I think that's such a hard concept to grasp. But you weight isn't does weight doesn't mean health. Your weight doesn't say how healthy you are. It doesn't show anything. You can be very thin and not healthy. You can be in a larger body and be very healthy. And it's a hard concept to grasp because there are still a lot of medical providers that will say the opposite, that will just look at your weight and tell you you need to lose weight. But the bottom line is, if you are in a larger body and you have high cholesterol, you don't need to lose weight to help your cholesterol. Maybe you need to change factors about your diet, but that doesn't correlate with your weight at all. And I know that's such a hard pill to swallow. And the last piece I would add to that too is I know a lot of times when I see clients or talk to people, they say, I really want to be at my high school weight or at my wedding weight. And we look and we take a step back and we say, what were you doing at those times? I mean, one, if you were 16 when you were in high school and you're 30 now, chances are your body just changes over time. Like your body probably doesn't want to look like it did when it was 16, and that's a good thing. We want change. We don't want you to look like you did when you were 16. You're 30. And two, or your wedding weight, what were you doing at that time? Were you eating enough? Were you eating a lot? Were you enjoying it? And not all the time, but a lot of times people are able to be like, no, I was on a pretty strict diet. And of course, we can't have both. We can't have the wedding weight that you got with a strict diet and have a healthy relationship with food. Like we just have to choose one or the other.
Yeah, isn't that I think that's one of the most common things that I hear as well is like my high school weight when you were a child. Grown women glorifying again being a child and what that body looks like. And that is so common because that is a societal pressure thing. For women, we glamorize children. And that is what it is of like what a young girl looks like is not what a woman's body looks like, and not what will feel good and what it should look like at that time. So like I'm glad you brought that up. And I think that is a beautiful segue into my next question about how movement fits into all of this. So, one thing that like Rachel and I, we started a health and fitness podcast, and it was either our first or second episode. We called it Fuck the Scale because we were, we came in hot, but we were like, weight loss, how much we weigh on a scale is not talking about what our health factors are. And we really wanted to open up the conversation for that. And then how, movement fits into this and how we can set performance-based goals, which are, internal, where we can start to look at how we are feeling and how we're fueling our movement, and how that looks with nutrition, how that works with nutrition. So let's just talk about how movement fits in all of this. Do you think exercise and purposeful movement enhances someone's ability to eat intuitively?
Yeah, I love that you guys did all that. I mean, it definitely does. Movement is so important, and it's kind of similar to how we look at food. We want your motivation for exercise to be really positive things. So instead of exercising because it burns the most calories or it makes you sweat the most or you feel like it's the best for weight loss, find exercise you can do that you enjoy. That's fun. When you enjoying movement, as you know, is like the best way to get you to do it. If you're doing it because it burns calories, you probably dread it beforehand. You probably hate it while you're doing it. And you might even not feel good afterwards, which so defeats the purpose. Whereas if you're doing something you enjoy, you look forward to it, you enjoy it, and you're also able to be like, do I want to do this for 30 minutes today? Do I feel good and I want to keep going for 45? Or do I feel like I want a rest day today? And you're able to appreciate all those things. And like you said too, I think having goals that aren't about your weight are really important too. Like, I want to feel stronger. I want to have more energy. I want to be in a good mood. I know, even for me the other day, I woke up and I was so tired. I wanted to snooze my alarm. And then I thought, no, when I get a 15-minute workout in, I just have so much less brain fog to go through my workday. So let me just do like a light intensity 15 minutes. And it's such a more powerful and more positive motivation to exercise.
I love that. And, I had talked to Kelsey before, we brought you on about like her experience with this. And I don't know, sometimes we always match up because we're sisters. So it's kind of like same bloodline and stuff. But I don't know if this is true for everybody else. But I find that my food choices often mirror my activity level. And like when I am moving and moving with a purpose and consistently moving and doing exercise that I love, my food choices sort of look like my exercise. Like, it's like if I'm super sedentary and I am not moving at all, my food choices look like food that, like, is sedentary. I tend to crave foods that don't leave me feeling as energetic and good when I'm not moving as much. And when I am exercising consistently, I tend to crave foods that are going to fuel that. And it's like a weird thing because when people always ask us, like, should I diet before getting to the gym? It's like I want to maybe lose a little bit of weight before I start exercising. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this, but like they go hand in hand. And the foods that you crave and will want to consume absolutely, for me, anyways, mirror my activity level. So I always recommend that people like get in the gym today, tomorrow, like don't even get in the gym, just do some air squats at your house, like do some yoga in the morning, like do anything because like you said, like for you it's the brain fog and it sets off your day in a specific way that I think really mirrors the way you intuitively eat. I don't know, for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's so similar because it's all about how you feel. If you're exercising to feel good and eating foods to feel good, it's totally on the same wavelength for sure.
Last question was about, okay, so you're on the internet.
I
It's a
am.
place. It's a place. It's a place to get out information and that people can find it, but it's also a place where you're so open to just whatever people will say. Um, I'm wondering if you have had hurdles with regards to the authority of your advice based on the specific body you're in, because I know that as a woman, when you put yourself out there with health and nutrition advice, people are quick to look at what you look like and what the body you're in looks like and decide whether or not the authority of your advice is valid.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, what your experience with that has been.
Yeah, it's so true. I think it's something that you get on both ends of the spectrum too. Like for me, I'm glad you brought it up because I think it's important to acknowledge. It's obviously much easier for me to say, "Oh, give yourself permission to eat foods and you can be healthy in any size," when I'm in a smaller body and I just do have thin privilege. It's just my body type. I have never really been in like a larger body, so I can't relate to that. And of course, there are people that say, "Oh, well, you can say eat these things because you look like this." Absolutely, and they're totally valid to feel that way. I think on the other end of the spectrum, it's really hard when you have someone in a larger body saying those things because you have people that are thinking, well, if they ate this and this, they wouldn't look like that. So you do get it on both ends. I think, depending on how comments are presented, I try to combat them the best that I can. But I think in general, the best thing you can do is like on social media, especially, just diversify who you follow. Follow people that look different, that have different body types, different skin colors, different genders, just every different thing. Because that's what people look like in the real world anyway. We don't all have the same body type. We all look differently. And I think it's really helpful when you can see people that look differently, all spreading a similar message, and when you can also see people that look like you and that you relate to. It's like most of us, when we seek out any type of provider, whether it's a dietitian, a therapist, even often a doctor, we seek people that are similar to us or look like us. So you want to like diversify who you follow, but you also want to find people who look like you. And if I'm not everyone's cup of tea, like that's okay. I want to spread my message as far and wide as I can, but I know there are so many people that look differently than me that spread similar messages. So hopefully there's something for everyone. And we just have to remember that, you can't judge a person's advice or what they're saying or their health status based on how they look.
I love it. I love that. The content of what you have to say. Like, do you like what you hear? Like, does that make sense to you? Do you feel like that is how you want to live your life? That's how I put it out there too. Like, I am who I am, just like the most authentic version of me. If you like what I have to say, welcome. If you don't, I'm not for you. Cool. I hope you find someone that is and that matches with you. And it always comes from like a place like just talking about, you know, the different body sizes is like when you have those questions, we are prioritizing a smaller body, and that's what we were trying to get away from. I think it's just important to just say like, this is not the ideal. This is not what we're going for. We're going for, you know, everyone feeling the happiest, healthiest version of themselves in their body, whatever that looks like for them. And that's not one thing. It's never going to be one thing, and that's amazing. So if along those lines, if you liked what Sammi had to say today,
I did. I did.
you did,
Well,
I
thank
did.
you.
Where can our listeners hear more from you?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Veggies and Chocolate. And then there's a lot more on my blog, which is sammybrondo.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I checked out your Instagram today and some of your TikTok, which is, I love short form videos. So like reels and, and TikToks are like where I'm just like consuming like the information. So yeah, if you haven't checked her out yet, head over to those places to hear more from her. And we loved having you on today and getting to like dive into this conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Sammi.